My first encounter with Jackie Chan is not Jackie necessarily at his best. I saw him for the first time in the Cannonball Run. I probably saw Cannonball Run when I was like 7 or 8. It's a pretty lowbrow movie, that, but when you're 7 years old, Cannonball Run is fantastic. And I was particularly taken with the very brief Jackie Chan bits that I thought, like, oh, this is great. You know, who's this guy? I didn't reconnect with Jackie Chan properly until a lot later. I was probably about 14 or 15. Jonathan Ross did a TV show in the UK called The Incredibly Strange Film Show.
The Incredibly Strange Film Show proudly presents Mr. Jackie Chan.
And it completely blew my head off. Once I'd seen this documentary, I had to track down all of the movies after that I saw on TV. Police Story, Project A, Late Night on Channel 4 in the UK. And then probably around that time, I started tracking his new releases, like Miracles, Operation Condor, Police Story 3. My favorites were like the older ones. I think when people say, what's your favorite Jackie Chan film? It's like Police Story 1 and 2, Project A, Dragons Forever, Wheels on Meals, and also Armor of God is really good fun. The first time then I saw a Jackie Chan film in the cinema was Rumble in the Bronx. I remember really vividly being in the Prince Charles Cinema, which at that time used to have a balcony as well. And I think I was downstairs. The first sequence in Rumble in the Bronx, when Jackie Chan is training on that little wooden tree, everybody was so hyped up that they were going to see Jackie Chan in action, that even that he was just training on this wooden tree. And I remember vividly people like stamping on the balcony and on the floor, and it was this amazing thing. It's like I'd seen this guy on TV and VHS, and then to finally see one on the big screen was an extraordinary experience. His later career in Hollywood is then through Rush Hour and also the other like 90s films getting released at the cinema, like First Strike and Mr. Nice Guy. But Police Story, I think, is his best film. And no matter how many people try and rip off Jackie Chan movies, there's something that they can't rip off, which is Jackie Chan himself. Jackie Chan, especially at that time, was kind of an anomaly because, especially in the Western world, most people's idea of a kung fu fighter would be Bruce Lee. And Bruce Lee's signature move is like this, come on, kind of like an aggressive come on. Whereas when I think of Jackie Chan, the first thing I imagine Jackie Chan doing is defending himself. Because Jackie Chan's signature move is like blocking, getting kicked, he's in pain. Jackie Chan is like very vulnerable because usually he's his action hero who's been sort of pushed into it against his will. Because it's sort of an interesting thing to make somebody who is like a superhuman action hero who can fight better than any of us ever could, or can do these stunts and acrobatic skills better than any of us. And yet, he is also an everyman. He is such a sort of an expressive visual performer and a great visual actor. You know, you can watch a Jackie Chan film with the sound turned off. It doesn't really matter if it's dubbed or if it's in the original language. It just kind of plays. I think that's why in countries just around the world in any language, Jackie Chan is a star. And it's flying in the face of what everybody else was doing is that most other action heroes, especially at that time, were like super cool or like tough guys. Stallone and Clint Eastwood or, you know, Schwarzenegger. You know, and then you've got Jackie who can like sort of whip any of their asses, but also is like a goofball at the same time. And lovable. And handsome in a way that like all the girls love Jackie Chan because he's kind of cute. It's a really sort of like an amazing mix of everything. He's kind of like this pin-up and comedy star and an action badass and a singer. He sings the end theme song as well. What Jackie brought to the table, it was this mix between Bruce Lee and Buster Keaton, and Harold Lloyd as well. Mixing sort of action with comedy in a way that hadn't really been done before. You know, what Jackie Chan does in the same way as Buster Keaton does, or Harold Lloyd did, or even like Fred Astaire did, is your main special effect in those movies is you have a performer who can do it. And if you can do it, you can shoot it in a wide shot and not have to cut away, because there is no double. That pole sequence, if you edited that together in a Western way and you said, hey, we got 5 cameras on the pole, we'll cut around this. Jackie Chan, he doesn't want to put any cuts into that sequence because he doesn't want you to know that he didn't do it for real, which he did. It's a great thing, is it? Sort of show the stunt from one angle, show the stunt from another angle, show the stunt from the other angle. My favorite thing about when he goes down is when he gets to the bottom, he gets up and starts fighting immediately. So whether it's an action sequence or whether it's a comedy sequence, it's interesting in terms of you can hold on shots longer. The whole business in Police Story where he's answering the different phones, because he has the grace of a dancer and an acrobat, because he trained in that as well. I think that the thing that I was really taken with about Police Story, Jackie Chan had huge success in Hong Kong as a young actor, especially through Drunken Master. And then it had like 3 different attempts to break Hollywood as a young actor and action star. And that would have been Battle Creek Brawl, then Cannonball Run 1 and 2, and then probably most disappointingly, The Protector. And so Jackie Chan comes back to Hong Kong slightly with his tail between his legs because he's now like seemingly struck out in Hollywood. What I really admire is that when he returns to Hong Kong, he then attacks his next film, Police Story, with such a vengeance as a way of literally saying, fuck you, Hollywood. Let me show you what I can do. He had something to prove. They absolutely go for broke with the action. You know, the first 15 minutes has more action than most Hollywood action films do in their entire running time. And then you have amazing set pieces all the way through. And then you get to the climax, which I think is probably, amongst very stiff competition, the best Jackie Chan action sequence in his career. And looks extraordinarily dangerous because it is extraordinarily dangerous. Like, how can you really top Jackie Chan's kind of shopping mall sequence? Maybe you could make it look better with modern cameras, but you couldn't top the stunt work, the choreography, and the amount of, like, pain that goes into smashing all of that glass. It's extraordinary. So it's great to watch something where, even with all the technology that you had now, you couldn't actually better this. In Western movies in Hollywood, you know, there's insurance, number one. People are insured, and therefore there's safety, and therefore there's stunt doubles. In Jackie Chan films, him and his stunt team are like doing everything. And it's a similar thing you find in other sort of Hong Kong cinema. It cannot really be topped because it can't get any more dangerous. You know, it's very difficult to surpass that level of verisimilitude. The action sequences of Police Story 2 are pulverizing, and there's so much great stuff in it. There's lots of things that are burned into my brain from that film. Shots of him fighting at the end where he's climbing on the underside of the stairs, or the shot where he runs down the alley and basically jumps onto the wall and then onto the bonnet of the car. I think Police Story 2 also has the playground fight, which I think is one of the best set pieces in a Jackie Chan film and looks absolutely painful. It's a daydream of having an amazing fight at school. It's like fighting in a kid's playground and then sort of baddies bouncing off climbing frames and stuff. And I think this is more in Dragons Forever, but it's a little bit in Police Story 2 in the playground. It's this idea of having like white socks on or light socks on. And I thought, oh, that's clever. They got white socks on so you can always track their footwork. So when you have like a kick, there's like a flash of white going through it. It's not just a black leg to show off the choreography. They know where the best place to put the camera is for the stunt. With Jackie Chan things, it's like, this piece of choreography is this shot. And in fact, actually, when we did Scott Pilgrim versus the World, I used Brad Allen, who is a colleague of Jackie Chan's and part of Team Jackie Chan. We designed that in a similar way where you wouldn't do coverage for fights. You would shoot them in kind of like sections. Shot here is moves 1, 2, 3, 4. Shot here is moves 5, 6, 7, 8. Shot here is shots 9, 10, 11, 12. So you wouldn't do coverage. And that's a very Jackie Chan thing. If you watch the sequences, it's like, this is this bit of choreography, this is this bit of choreography, this is this bit of choreography, this is this bit of choreography. I'm sure there are certain parts of the fight where they're basically like doing it single camera because they don't want to cut to a B camera because they want you to see that Jackie Chan kicked this guy between the legs and the guy flew through the air and smashed through like a glass case. It looks better in one shot than it does in 3 cuts. I think I've sort of shown my love for like Jackie Chan many times in interviews. And when he was promoting The Foreigner in the States, I was asked to interview him. So it's finally 30 plus years since first like laying eyes on him. I got to meet the man himself and had a great conversation with him. You know, he gave me a Jackie Chan cap with a magnetic visor. You know, it was just a joy to meet him. I'm such a huge fan. Jackie Chan is Jackie Chan. There will be no sequel. He'll always be my favorite martial arts star because he is a one-of-a-kind and we may never see his like again.